Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Today we're going to be working Sinners, and it's very interesting because yes, it's. I'm sorry, like hopefully no one's going to shut me down for saying this, but yes, people have mainly black skin, and it's very interesting. I absolutely love working with dark skins. It's just it feels like a so rich, so nice, and the tonality is different. But also, there's a very particular way how that skin reacts to Kodak film. I really find it really, really interesting. So yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to try to recreate the look of Sinners. It's an absolutely amazing movie. I think, guys, if there's an IMAX, and I mean like an IMAX with a 70 millimeter projection, anywhere near to where you are, try to book yourself in. I believe they extended the run, and I'm pretty sure this movie is gonna run like it's gonna be rerun again and again because it's just such a an incredible. First of all, looking and the story is totally insane. Like everything about this film is just really special, and I'm actually so happy to see that it's doing well in the cinemas. It's just great. I mean, like I find that this is you can see that if you actually make a little bit of a spectacle, you go for large format. In this case, you don't necessarily it's still possible to make, let's say, arty movies and make them commercially successful. So yeah, so thumbs up for Ryan Coogler. Also, the cinematographer was Autumn Arcapo. Unbelievable. Actually, I saw a photo of her hand holding IMAX camera. I mean, it was just incredible, amazing. Unbelievable, lady. I can't believe, you imagine the strength he had, to do that. It's just absolutely crazy. I love it. And it was graded by the one and only Costas from Photochem. Probably, when you hear large format, this is probably the only place where at least Hollywood is going to go and finish. And Costas is somebody we've heard before. I mean, he's done many other large format movies, incredibly skilled for this kind of look of the large format. I actually really he deserves much more credit for his work than that he gets. So amazing work, Costas, but when you actually do film photochemically like this, it's very hard to say like just a colorist, because you have to really understand there is a whole team of people behind it that make this happen. When you shoot on film, this is a very important thing as well for us to understand, right? When we shoot on film, a lot of responsibility about the look is taken away from the actual color grading process, and it's put into the hands of everybody else involved in the process. And I would say, starting with people who design the film stock, people who manufactured film stock, right? All the technicians who actually made sure that film stock came out the way it came out. People who processed that film in a very, very specific way, keeping the consistency. Depending if if it was finished photochemically, or if it was scanned and DI'd and then printed, right? People who worked on that process, right? And then colorist as well. But you see, like, there is just so many essential parts of the process that are involved in this kind of whole shooting on film. And I think kind of the responsibility of the look spreads itself. It's not just like when we shoot digital, colorist has so much power, and the look is really created in a digital process of color grading. But with film, this is really different. The responsibilities are shared between the teams. So yeah, I think it's important to also recognize that as well. So let me start now. Without further ado, I'm gonna I have a little bit time for Q&A, just to discuss a little bit the tools that I'm using. I'm gonna try to go full on with the JPlog 2 workflow, and I'm gonna also try to be a little bit more how they say, like I use some of these new saturation tools that I just built as well, so I think it's gonna be an interesting one. And yes, I'm using also Color Lab. Guys, I have to admit, like I'm raising my hand. I'm becoming more and more reliant on AI in my workflow. So I'm really sorry for that. So yeah, so basically here, let's just go quickly through some of the reference frames and what I have. So if film has like a distinct looks. Yes, it's shot on film, but it has its looks. Like it's really like there. We can definitely see that there's different parts of the film look a little bit different. So there is this exterior scenes, right? Absolutely gorgeous skin tones, right? I love the softness. I mean, look, they're shooting into an open sky, but you see how gorgeous this fall off is. And one thing you have to understand as well, this is a horror effectively, right? And the horror is I think really horror deserves more discussion about the look of horror. This is maybe like has a little bit extreme kind of look, because it had a budget to be shot on large format, which is very unusual for horror. We're going to talk more about horror, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because horror is doing incredibly well at the moment. There is a lot of work out there, and I think we should be like paying a little bit more attention. So I think next Friday we're going to talk more about different looks for horror movies. But one thing that is apparent about this particular look is it's very dark. It's really dark. You need to watch this in the cinema. I mean, this is a film that is cinema film, right? You need to, turn the lights off. Actually, I don't know if it's even intended to be watched at home. This is dark movie, right? And they have, really worked hard to make it very dark. I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Then basically, so this is like then there are these interior shots, in this barn, or this bar, whatever it is, like, and absolutely gorgeous, this kind of warmth. So yeah, so then I'm gonna start with this look, because I think this one's kind of more significant. These are just shots that I found on ShotDeck, not ShotDeck, what's it called, Artlist. Then we have again more nights, and so on. So like I kind of picked this one. I'm sorry that the resolution of my references is not the greatest. I just downloaded like a trailer from YouTube. That's all I was able to get. And then basically then we have these kind of again exteriors. Just look at the amount of contrast in here. It's just crazy. Like if you look at this highlight, and then look at the the depth of the shadows, right? Really, 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 really strong, right? Okay, so let's start. Like I have a couple of things, and I'm going to show you, just before, we started, I was playing a little bit around with it, but I'm going to try to make it as experimental, as raw as possible. So you can also see the way of thinking and what I'm doing and how I'm working. So the first thing I do is I go and prepare my references, okay? And the way what I do this is I basically put an inode into the gamma 7.9, gamma 2.4, and then I put an O node, and I'm using ACES 2.0. I'm really, really loving the ACES 2.0. I always did actually. So you'll see me use this a lot. And then what I do is then I put in between Color Lab AI. I'm using the creator version. And the reason why I use this creator version is the new version 3.4 that has a plugin. But hasn't got a look designer, and because I have a film lab, I don't need like a plugin. So I think it's a really great combo, by the way. So like a creator 3.4 with a plugin, and then I have then the film lab on top of it. And then what I do then, the reason why I put it here, because this is how I save things as reference. So basically like I can just, click here and save it as reference. And then basically I have then this image as a reference. Now, the reason why you see everything clipped is because I went to timeline, settings and in timeline settings in the resize, I have applied like a good blanking because, just to match the aspect ratio. But unfortunately, this blanking sits on the timeline level. So whenever I try to superimpose my reference, right, it kind of gets cropped as well. So yeah, that's a kind of limitation of what happens when you put the blanking. But I think it's absolutely essential for me to put the blanking on straight away because without it, everything starts feeling a little bit crazy, right? Okay, so let me then what I do. This is my note tree. Now this is not a normally note tree how I would grade. This is a note tree that I'm just doing to build a look. I'm just trying to design a look here, and I like to have everything on my note tree like this, so that way I don't have to do a lot of switching and stuff like this. So again, I'm working JPlog2. So here I have my inode. I wasn't sure what this camera is, so I just use Arilog C. It looks pretty good, It kind of gives me also that gorgeous compression here a little bit in the waveform, So that's what I want. This movie is very compressed in the shadow, right? And so I like that. And then I'm again using the same SDR, which is the JPlog2 to ACES 2.0. Okay, and then let's say basically what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna put a lens. I know that you normally see me put lenses like all the way at the end, and that's probably what I would be doing is if I'm grading, but because I'm building the look, I really wanna see this image before I start grading it, like with the lens applied to it. And the reason why I like to do that is because it just gives that barreling a little bit filter, and it kind of gives it a little bit, modulation transfer function. And I just find that, that this is really important. What I'm doing here on lens side, I'm using anamorphic distortion. Not sure this was shot anamorphic or not, but I just feel like that this anamorphic distortion just really feels really, really nice. I'm not tinting it at all. I'm leaving the tint out, and I'm just going to apply a little bit modulation transfer function. I want, this was shot on 65, right? So, we're not going to have a lot of MTF, but there is some for sure, like, around 90, we're definitely going to have some MTF. Okay, so basically that's kind of my starting kind of pipeline. And then I have here a CDL, which is where I'm going to be controlling a little bit, exposure. In my case, I'm just going to open up gamma a little bit. I love, this is again, when JPlog2 and a tonal mapping of ACES2 allows me to work just with a single controller when I'm doing a little bit exposure adjustments and when I'm happy with the contrast. I don't want to offset it. I don't want to upset that black level. So I'm just, using a little bit gamma. And then what I do here is I have a look designer. A look designer I've put in JPlog2 to JPlog2. And then, luckily, we know this movie was shot recently, so we don't have to, reinvent the wheel. So what I'll do is I'm going to go for the negative stock, and I use the negative stock, and we shot this on 5219 500T. Okay, so then basically, so that is going to give me, and I'm going to really give it a lot of strength. This is kind of, this is necessary. This movie, has a very, very strong cinematic look. And then what I'll do is we know that it was printed, and we're going to use 2383. But out of all of this, I'm going to use this last one, which is Kodak Vision Color Print. It really spells it out, because I think this is probably closest to what output, we normally are used to seeing from Photochem. Again, like, you got me, like, it's impossible for us to match what Photochem did for this movie, because, there is so many variables in film processing that it's really hard for us to say what exactly happened, but, we can estimate. And then the moment I'm using negative and print, I always, turn on FPE, because I do want to limit my color gamut to a real print film. This is so apparent in this film that it's actually very saturated, but that doesn't have a really wide gamut, so we'll include some FPE in it as well. Okay, so the first thing then is, and then let's go and work on a contrast, because the contrast is really where everything is happening. So I'm going to go now and say F3, really. That's kind of and the moment you see I put an F3, that's kind of where I got this crunchiness, right? So let me just show you here, like if I was to kind of just give you a little bit more, you see the moment I'm on the F3, I get that. But I definitely have to, you know, do more crunch, right? So I'm just gonna go and you see how this is the magic of that kind of filmic contrast, that crunch. And it's so hard for me to explain, you know, this crunch is not a curve. You have to understand this crunch happens, you know, in this whole process, you know, the way how light reacts and refracts, whatever. And this, you know, this is my kind of magic tool to get to that filmic contrast. And I'm just going to use a little bit push and pull because I killed it a little bit. I want to be able to see his face just enough, right? And there we go. So now I'm kind of in that, so I can see just enough exposure of his face and my character. They kind of at the same level of exposure, but I have the full, you know, kind of, you know, crunch, you know, that shadows. You see how my shadows are like a really compressed in the same way. I mean, he's even a little bit higher, but we can fix that in a minute. I'm on the trim side. I don't have to worry about it right now. Okay, then what I do is I'm moving on to AI. And then I loaded already my reference into AI. And then I'm just going to do a match. And you see what I'm doing now, CDL and post Showlet as well, right? And the reason why I'm doing all of this matching a little bit later is because I'm kind of, you know, applying already some of that control of the look. And my AI is just really helping me with a kind of, you know, like a Wolfgang again, just to, you know, bring this look a little bit closer home, right? So let me just make sure that this is my kind of reference. Yes, it is. And then let me just go and make sure, let's see what I'm going to get. Okay, it's kind of, you know, I was thinking it's going to go a little bit more than that, but okay, fine. And then let me now just kind of, you know, go with my AI, and I will just kind of, let's turn off my reference. Okay. And then here I have adjusted my little bit my exposure. We can bring this exposure down a little. Okay, there we go. So the next thing then I'm gonna do is I'm gonna then use my Farbsättiger, right? Because, you know, there is still a huge difference now in the level of saturation, and that's probably where we're going to now be able to start seeing the. So I'm now increasing saturation, and you see what happens the moment I start increasing the saturation. This is the moment I start seeing that same level of you know, tonality. You see how now my tonality here, you know, this light, you know, starts getting temperature, and this is really like, you know, I maybe last week, if you followed that live love stream, you know, I was kind of really trying to go for this Kodachrome look when I was developing this, and I really wanted to have a way how I can boost saturation. I really find that when the digital camera kind of just gets out and then we process especially apply some, you know, film emulation LUTs and stuff like this, that we don't really get a lot of that saturation. Now I have two places now where I'm controlling the level of saturation. So just to understand, one is here in the post-processing of my look designer, right? So there's one there. But what I really like is that boost effect that I get with the Farbsättiger, right? So you see, like, you know, this is kind of, you know, where, so suddenly, like, you know, I have taken that gamut limited output of Look Designer, which is accurate in terms of the film emulation, and I have then boosted that one, okay? And then I'm going to go and just see whether I need a little bit tone mapping and perfect. You see, the moment I did a, you know, Helmholtz-Kohlrausch effect, thank you all, for, by the way, for sending those videos. I love them. I love it. The color grading world is going crazy, man. Everyone's talking about Helmholtz-Kohlrausch. But look at it. I mean, it's magical. You see, the moment I put it, right, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. You know, I mean, just I wanna just take a moment just to show you this. You see how it kind of really like around sticks off. Like, it's just really wonderful. I loved it. I love it. And then you see, I'm actually not far off, you know, and I haven't really noodled a lot with this shot. You know, I'm in a very good place. And then I'm going to then go and put some halation. Of course, now halation I always put in parallel node together with texture, because I don't want my texture to be affected by halation or halation affected by the texture, right? So that's not really how I want to work. And look, the moment I added a little bit halation, right, everything starts getting a little bit that glow, a little bit that softness that we like, right? And then I'm going for texture. And here I am definitely oversampling. Guys, this was shot on 65. The grain is so fine. You know, it's just so beautiful. And I'm going ultra fine as well on the print side. Again, why is because it's shot on 65. This grain is just, you know, so super fine. Yes, there's tons of grain in it. Absolutely, right? If you see my waveform monitor, but also you see how I'm like improving the texture overall and much of everything. And you know what? You know, I actually think without necessarily trying to completely match this one-to-one, because that's not really what I'm trying to do. You know, when I'm recreating these looks, I'm never really trying to kind of be 100% identical to what my source is. I'm trying to use my source as an inspiration to get to a really look that works with what I'm doing. And I have definitely, I believe, succeeded to give this kind of, you know, look, right, and then a beautiful character, right? I really think that we are like in a great ballpark, right? And yeah, we have you know the contrast, the texture, the you know the overall tonality, that kind of very specific saturated feel without really hurting, you know, like I really love that, you know, I really love that. That's kind of my aesthetic at the moment. I'm probably, you know, like because I spent so much time looking at this kind of 2D CTLs that I'm really going crazy about it. And I would say that this is now a good template, you know, to start with, you know. So I have like a pretty nice template here. And you know, this kind of node tree could probably work for all the other shots. So let me now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to copy now this node tree, right? I will then reset my CDL. I don't need that. This was also, I'm going to leave it as well in Arilog C. It doesn't look too bad. I'm going to keep my Shola the way it is, but I will reset my AI node because I'm definitely going to have to do something else there. I'm gonna also reset my saturation node because that is definitely individual from shot to shot. And I'm gonna reset my tone. I don't want to look at it right now, but I leave halation and grain, so that's gonna stay consistent from shot to shot, I believe. Same type of color management, JP log to 709. Okay, same lens as well, so I'm not changing that. So for this shot here, what we're going to do is we're going to then, oh yeah, and the Sholat staying the same. You know, we'll try to stay consistent with the Sholat as much as possible. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go and say, select my reference. And basically, let me see, like if I must have saved it, 1 second. I don't want it by name, but by date. And let's see if I have it here, other way around. There we go. This is the one. So I'm going to use this as a reference. Okay, so let me show my reference. Okay, so this is good. This is good. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to go and say, okay, give me a match. Let's see what that's going to do. Excellent. All right. So I'm kind of already like in a kind of this kind of tonality of this shot. But what I'm missing definitely is if you see like is that richness of a skin tone. You see how this skin tone is like a very cold and hasn't got really that amount of richness or saturation. And this is a very interesting point that I was just trying to make earlier. When you work with black skin, you really need to control the exposure of the skin very well, because the Sholat, the film emulation part, is really affecting the skin tone. It's really controlling the skin tone. You shouldn't be like a noodling the skin in. You should let the Sholat really build it for you, because that's really where the skin tone comes from. Okay. So so let me show you, like, so if I, for example, if I find that my skin is too cold, what I can do is I can always lift it a little bit, you see? So now when I open it a little bit like this, right? Then this is where I start getting the warmth of the skin. You see? So that's basically an interesting kind of, you see, so now my skin is kind of getting, it's at least it's kind of getting, I'm starting to getting the warmth. Why? Is because that's where the kind of the threshold is in Kodak stock, where it translates, where it goes from, colder, shadows to warmer highlight, so you really need to like expose for that. If you want to have warmth, you need to expose skin for that. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically again just whack my chrominance a little bit, and that's again like me, just I need to just be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to blend in the reference. So yeah, you see, there's the skin. Like think about it, this is where we started. Like look, this was the starting point. It was like these two skin tones had almost nothing to do. And I know that sometimes you guys think like, oh, what I need to do, I need to isolate skin, do it. But no, let the film do its magic, right? So just let it do its magic. So open it up. The moment you open it up, you see now I'm getting the warmth because I lifted it above my, like I brought it close to my mid-gray, right? And then what you do is then you basically open up that volume of color, and that's then when that filmic saturation is just going to a little bit expand, and that's where you're going to find yourself in this gorgeous tonality. We're definitely too open, so let's put the tone on. I think we're good with this. And then I'm going to use a little bit trim now. So I don't want to now change this on the primary, because the primary is controlling the input to the show a lot. So where I'm going to be controlling now this whole thing is just a little bit bringing it down on a trim node. This is post AI, and that's where I'm basically bringing these levels. So you see they're like pretty close now on my I can go a little bit lower as well, just a notch lower down. And that's where I'm basically bringing these two to feel like a little bit nice. Like so but what I'm really interested in is basically really this. So you see how this skin looks just so beautiful. You have, and this is nice thing about dark skin, right? Dark skin has got a lot of detail in a shadow, and it just goes all the way up in the reflection. I mean, it's just really something. I feel like there's loads to move to kind of, I have to say, like, it's just really such a pleasure to work with kind of dark skin sometimes, because you have such a huge span of possibilities as well, what you can do with it. It's really, really interesting. I love it. And then let's go into saturation. I don't want too much of that red, So so there I'm gonna close down a little bit. I'm gonna bring my orange down a little as well, because I'm kind of just controlling now this separately, guys. And then I'm gonna go and put that green up. Hopefully I can get some of that, greeniness, there. Maybe if I go to lens and I also see whether if I cool down, if I put a little bit of cyan in my lens, whether that's gonna help. That's where it is. So just a little, so you see maybe like a little bit of, or maybe green. Green is nicer. Yeah, so basically like what I'm doing again, I'm trying to kind of really influence color with these non-linear tools as much as possible, because I feel that that's where I'm getting like a, closer to it, because I'm certain, I wasn't there when they were grading it, but and actually I think we should try to reach out to Costas to see whether he's available, and if it would be good for him to talk to him about this, what really happens and how these things really work. But the color feels very organic in these movies. It doesn't feel like someone has been picking some secondaries or change. Like I just feel like that there is a kind of such a kind of beautiful, harmonious flow in these looks. So yeah, and again, let me see. Like I'm where I am now. Like this is where we started. Okay, I mean slog. Sorry for that, but yeah, I think we're pretty good. We're a little bit too green maybe now when I look at it. I have to say, like maybe that green tint was maybe a little bit too much. Let me see, what was I, cyan? Yeah, maybe cyan's better. Yeah, I'm kind of feel a little bit greenish there. But yeah, I think in any case, like there is a big flare in here in these shots. It's going to be always very difficult for us to make it so clean and sharp like this shot because this whole lens now is blooming, right? Let me do then one more. I'm going to try to do this one, let's see how this one's going to work. So this is already in Rec 709. So I'm going to have to go and say here, go for the Rec 709 gamma, so this is it. I'm going to go and reset my CDL. I leave the Sholat where it is, but I'm going to go and reset my match here. I'm also going to reset my trim, and I will disable my saturation for the moment. I just really want to concentrate to what's happening, but I leave halation and grain. Why not? So then what we want to do is we want to come to this shot. We want to grab this as a still. So we're going to say save it as reference and then show reference. Yeah, that's it. And then we're going to try to go to AI and then show reference. Yeah, and then let's do a match. Let's see what's going to do. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Good job. Good job, AI. But you know what, guys? I'm working at the moment on the new version of version 4, where we're going to actually give you ability to develop a lot as well. And I think, this whole thing of rebuilding looks is going to completely change then. All right, let's see. I'm going to do my tonality here as well. Let me go and compare these two. Oh, God, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I think I need more yellow. Yeah, you see, the moment I got more yellow in it, this is kind of where I started getting this, you see this highlight? You see how it has this like a yellowish feel? I'm not sure whether my lens tint maybe needs a little warm. Maybe, let me see whether this could be warm, or green. Yeah, green is nicer. So I think I'm going to be probably working more with green tint. And then basically, yeah. So that, I have to say the magic of this look definitely happens with this DCTL. That's basically where I'm getting all this thing. And now I'm just going to do a little Helmholtz Kohlrausch. You see, it just kind of just takes this garishness of digital a little bit out, right? And I'm there. Now, maybe I'm going to just do a little bit of subtractive here. And I will just go a little bit on a cyanish level, because I just really feel like I'm not, there we go. I'm not quite, like I was not quite there. Like, I think I was a little bit too warm. So yeah, so just a little, like a notch of 0.03 on a cyan on subtractive, kind of does the magic. But what's really, what really for me is essential about this look is that kind of oiliness and richness in the shadow, right? So look, look at it. This is where we were, right? It looks beautiful. It's really beautifully exposed shot. It's so clean. It's got lots of detail. The skin looks beautiful. It's nice and warm, right? But once I do this, right, I'm in a different territory, right? now I'm in a like a higher end, a little bit, gritty kind of, side of the things. I really love this. I really like this. So yeah, so that would be kind of, I could now carry on shot by shot, but that would be like, I think, an interesting kind of example to what we did. If you like, guys, I can share with you this note tree as well. It's absolutely no problem, but you would have to have a film lab and a DCTLs and a color lab as well. Maybe I could export to color labs much as a lot, so you don't need whatever. In any case, like yeah, I could definitely share this with you, so you don't have to rebuild this from the beginning if you're trying to do it yourself. But it's a great way, it's a great little template, to how we could start, how we could take Sinners as an inspiration for building an amazing look for our own shows. Come and join me next week again. Same time, same place. It's going to be a really special one. I can't say more, but trust me when I say that. And yeah, have a great week and a weekend in front of you. I'm looking forward to seeing you exactly 1 week time. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Thank you, Louis, for helping out as well. Thank you, Will. Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye, bye, bye.